Alright, well this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again. We've got episode 78, and I'm calling it Lawsuit Compromise equals Community Celebration! Woo! And I've got NeroJinious here. He's here to equal me out with the excitement that I'm gonna give you. We've got NeroJinious here. He's gonna like pander me out. So, yeah. On tonight's show, we're gonna talk about the lawsuit update, which is that things are going pretty well because they finally settled. So, you know, we can be friends with our Magic friends, not that we weren't before. Again, we're going to do the giveaway from the YouTube. We're going to talk about some of the other VIP stuff going on, the $100,000 tournament. I've got Nero Jinious. He's never been on the show before, so this is his first time on the show. And we've got some other Hex updates where they talk about some of the other community people in the community. So, yeah, let's start right in by talking to Nero here. So, Nero, first time on the show. How are you feeling about it? So, how you doing?
I'm always nervous, but
he's always nervous. So, so Nero's one of my longtime viewers. He's actually done very well in many of the Hex TCG Pro tournaments. When there used to be Hex TCG Pro, of course, now they've turned into Five Shards tournaments. So yeah, I thought we would have him on the show. He's written a couple of articles. So, talk to me about some of your TCG background before Hex.
I've been playing TCGs for about 19 years. I'm 27, by the way. So,
okay.
Yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I've played Magic, of course, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, a Gundam Wing card game, the Dragon Ball Z card game. The first time it came out, it's a whole list. It's I like games.
Quite a few more than it sounds like I've actually tried out. So it's a commitment, you know, when you get into a card game. Like, how many have you had going at one time where you were actually like pretty active playing?
Because of how expensive they get.
Yeah.
Normally one. I try to focus.
Yeah, normally, yeah. I would kind of expect that. So, talk to me about how you came across Hex. Like, where did that come from for you?
I actually had a game on Kickstarter. I'm not going to say the name because it's not about that. At the exact same time as Hex. We also got funded, and part of the spirit of Kickstarter is to back other projects. And when I was looking through, I'm like, oh, I like this game. So I backed it at the King tier level.
Oh, wow. Okay, sweet. Well, we'll definitely have to talk about that the other game, this mysterious NeroJinious game. So you're a game developer then too, or you know, what's your do you want to talk about that at all, or?
Well, I actually do two jobs. I am an engineer here in New York, but yes, I work on some game stuff. We've done a few games. I just don't want to promote that too much right now, since this is about Hex.
Well, yeah, it is about Hex here. But yeah, I mean, another time, maybe you come on the stream or something. And, you know, I don't mind people giving a little plug here and there, of course, or especially if they're Hex providers. You know, you can always come on or like hit me up and then be a guest on the show, of course. So let's see. Do you do any Hex content? Have you done any streaming or anything, or like what kind of stuff do you do with that?
Yeah, I stream sometimes during tournaments, special events. Snake did something recently. I sometimes go on and do a draft. Not as much lately. It's just I stream as a hobby, and yeah, it's tough. You got work. Sometimes you just don't feel like it that day.
Yeah.
And I don't have a set schedule, so I don't have to come on. So it's easy to say no.
Right. Yeah. And even for me, like, sometimes I'll feel like, well, I do want to stream, but then I don't want to, you know, get bogged down. Like, if my wife needs to talk to me about something, I kind of want to just relax, because when you're streaming, you're actively trying to engage with your audience and do other things. So yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from there, as someone that does off and on streaming as well. So, but that's good. Could you tell the viewers where to find you, or type it in the chat or anything?
Yeah, let me get a link to my stream real quick. I also play other games there too. I'm big into foreign games. Like, I'm sure some of you have seen me play the Chinese Garden of Hex, because I'm all into stuff like that. Let me find my link. I don't even have it ready, so I apologize for that.
Yeah. Sweet. So let's move on and do some of the giveaways on the YouTube giveaway. So every week we do a YouTube giveaway, and let's see. I got to flip over to this screen. And as we progress through this episode, because I am actually drinking tonight in celebration of the lawsuit being over, I'm actually drinking this awesome drink that Fentio taught me about last time I was at Gen Con, called the Adios. And we're gonna keep it PC. We'll call it the Adios Mofo. So yes, we'll see how that goes for us. But we had a couple of great things on YouTube this last week where Jim Davies asked me exactly. He doesn't understand like how it is that we can come across and build a deck so quickly and all this other stuff. So that made me think maybe it would be a good idea to come up with a good way to like break it all down on like some of the typical things that I do when I'm building a deck. But let's go ahead and do this giveaway. So I've got my Gen Con dice here. You guys can't see it, but I'll be honest about it, and we'll just count them down. So we've got 6 people. Well, 5 people, and we'll just count them down. Oh no, it dropped, it fell, that doesn't count. It's cocked. Okay, we gotta do it on top of there we go. And actually it landed on a 1, so Jim Davies is going to get the convocation pack, and let's see what convocation pack. Usually I'm going to go ahead and just open these, and then I will get the card or thing, unless it's a sleeve, and then it just helps out this way, because otherwise I send a code and then it doesn't work, and there's a whole thing about that. But talk to me about some of the things that, as I'm opening this pack, that you do when you're building decks, like some of the general guidelines, Nero.
Generally, I first start by saying what kind of deck do I want to build, and what combinations of colors or whatever. Decide if I want to be mid-range or control or aggro, and basically I just throw everything in the deck, and I use a cutting method. I reduce my deck down to the 60 cards so that I have only the best cards left.
Right. So kind of similar to what we do on the show, when I'm like, I throw a bunch of ideas together and then I try to focus in on what the deck is actually trying to do. Kind of like that. Similar to that?
Yes, very, very similar to the way you do it.
Yeah.
And then I sometimes re-look at the curve, rebalance things, redo the resources, do a few tests, get a feel for it.
Right. Yeah, and you definitely have to do. That's one thing we're not able to do on the show, is actually test the deck. We just kind of follow certain general guidelines. A lot like the Pirate Code, you know, it's a lot of guidelines, not, you know, firm, you know, steadfast rules where you have to follow them. But generally, some things that you can follow are, you know, 21 to 23 shards if you're running some sort of aggro deck, and by that we mean you're going to, you know, play a lot of troops and just try to, like, you know, turn them sideways and attack your opponent's face and get enough damage in that you just win the race. Typically your control decks, you're going to run, you know, 23, probably more like 24 shards, all the way up through, you know, possibly 26, even 27. You're running a higher end curve where you're just trying to control the game and then play a big threat late game. And then of course there's that combo deck that wins with a combo, where you're trying to get your combo in place, so you're probably going to play a lot more card draw, and those are some general guidelines. Another thing I like to tell people is, imagine your deck, and imagine you can only draw, like, you know, 15 to 20 cards out of your deck. Which cards are the ones you really want to draw and try to win the game with? I mean, obviously there's mid to late game when it is that you guys have gone into this answering more, where you've just kept answering each other, but, you know, typically you want to see, best case scenario, what is your deck going to do on turns 1 through 7 type of thing. So that's another thing to think about, although we don't talk about that too much on the show. Anything else you want to add, Nero, before we move on to the press release?
Just, I'm a big supporter of playing with a deck.
Oh yeah.
It just lets you instantly have a feeling of how deep you can go, how much damage you can take. All those things are very, very important for decision making, and it's the biggest thing I can recommend to anybody.
Right. Again, something where you can't really do too much on the show. I did used to do some of that after the fact, and then I tried to post it, but I felt like there was just too much disjointedness between that and the show. So we mostly follow general concepts and guidelines to build, like, your rough draft, if you will, of a deck. That's typically what we do on the show. So we've got some press release for the settlement here. So basically it just says that they've settled things, and both companies are going to, like, from my standpoint, both companies are going to be able to build their games and play their games, and it sounds like we're basically out of the forest. I don't think there's going to be any issues from now, and just like I had said at the very, very beginning, if you go back to the very beginning of when the lawsuit kicked off, I said it would be not a good idea for Wizards of the Coast not to do this lawsuit, because if you own some sort of intellectual property and somebody infringes upon it and you don't seek litigation, then another company can further infringe upon you and be like, well, you guys didn't sue them, so we thought that it was perfectly fine. So it's basically like, protect your stuff or lose it. And that's one of the things I thought was very interesting about what came out in the press release. But it sounds like, you know, both companies are going to be able to go on. We're going to be able to be friends, and yeah, everything we hoped for this, you know, that we were on the edge of our seats about with this lawsuit, seems to have turned out for the better. So, Nero, what's your take on this?
I have mixed feelings on it. Of course, everyone's happy to see that everything's settled. We'll probably get a lot more serious players who were nervous before.
Yeah.
The other thing is they say they settled, which means typically that Hex had to give them something. Of course, we don't know what that is.
Right. We'll never know. We'll probably never know.
Yeah. So I'm always a little bit concerned there about how much of Hex's property profit is going to be their profit. So because I want them to have my money, obviously.
Right. I mean, we'll never know, but as long as we can move forward and we can have the game that we want to play and is going to exist in the future, then people can make better decisions. And if anything, I think now is the time, if you were on the fence about buying certain cards or investing in certain deck types or different things, now is the time to do it, because the card values can only go up, because they basically told us that this game is not going away. This is an intellectual property owned solely by Cryptozoic, which was the big problem when Cryptozoic or Hex LLC, more Hex LLC than Cryptozoic, but that was the problem with the WoW TCG. It really wasn't their intellectual property, and of course we now know that Hearthstone has kind of taken over for what the WoW TCG was, and they pulled that license. Cryptozoic in the past has done a lot of different things with intellectual licenses. That's what they're very well known for, and so developing its own world, its own intellectual property with Hex has probably been somewhat difficult, but the payoff is no one can ever take that away from them, and I think that's an awesome thing. So that can give us consumers confidence that this game is going to be around, hopefully until after we die, type of thing, for a very long time. So I think that's just a great thing all around for the players and for the company. Anything else?
It's going to be super exciting to see what quote-unquote big fish join Hex now and get some more competition, because I'm all about competitive play. So that's
yeah, I agree. Let's move on to talk about the VIP. If you haven't played the VIP yet, or if you're not playing it right now, then maybe you'll be playing it tomorrow or later on. I'll probably be playing tomorrow at some point in time. It looks like it's going to be sealed deck, and I believe I've already missed the one. Yeah, 7 o'clock here, Cryptozoic time, which just starts... actually, that starts in an hour. So basically, as soon as my show is over, then the VIP starts. So if you aren't in queue for it, you might want to get in queue for it now, unless you're going to try to play tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got one at 4 a.m., 12 o'clock, and then 8 o'clock. And then on Sunday there's a 3 o'clock and a 6 o'clock. So, yeah, it looks like that's what's going to be going on. That's, of course, in Eastern time. Actually, you know what? I'm trying to... Pacific Daylight Time, Eastern Daylight Time. So Pacific, actually, I think I might be wrong there. 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Cryptozoic time is 6. But yeah, it should be in an hour. Anyways, VIP is happening. They've got some great cards. You've got the Exarch of the Egg, which is pretty playable. I give it maybe a 3 out of 5. Then there's the Quash Tusker, which is definitely a 5 out of 5 playable. That you're just going to see a ton of, especially in the upcoming Hex TCG Five Shards tournament. What do you think about some of these cards that you can win? What do you like?
They're probably going to be, if not the most expensive, the second most expensive AAs that they've released from VIP so far.
I don't know. I think that the Exarch of the Egg probably won't be that pricey, because it's just very narrow of a card for a very specific deck type. It's like mono blood, basically, is what we've seen it in lately. The Quash Tusker, though, that one's going to go up. That's going to be a nice one to have a play set of in the future, for sure. because, you know, in the last VIPs we had, I wish I could have gotten the Carnosaurus. I think the Carnosaurus is definitely worth more than this Exarch of the Egg, honestly, but, you know, maybe that's just me.
Well, it's two different deck types. Although it's a Venom, it's really good for pretty much any control-based blood deck, which is mono blood. But yes, I love the Carnosaurus too because I am more of a mid-range and aggro player. So
Right.
yes, I also value Carnosaurus more and Tusker more. But
What was the other one from the last one?
It was darn.
I can't even remember it.
It wasn't played very much.
Yeah, I don't think that one saw very much play. You can see how memorable it. Oh no, it was the 2-1. That's what
Escort,
it was.
yeah.
Escort. Yeah, and that one just it feels like that wanted to be in some sort of mono diamond deck, which is just not competitive right now. So it's unfortunate. Moving on, we've got the $100,000 tournament, which I mistakenly said $10,000 during the Corey interview so long ago now. But it is $100,000. Make no mistakes. It looks like I thought it was top 8, but it looks like it's 12 people will be getting flown in to Hex Entertainment to do the finals. So is that right? Is that
Yeah.
yeah? So it's 12 now. I thought it was 8. It used to be 8. Did I dream that up?
It probably was 8 at the time, and they changed their mind.
Right. So in order to actually even play, so you have to win one of these 12 tournaments to get flown in, and I don't know if lodging is going to be taken care of them by you. I would think it's you.
They're taking care of lodging.
Oh, they're taking a lodging too, which is sweet. Okay, so you can make it down there, but in order to play in these, you have to earn points. You need 10 points just to sign up for these tournaments. And that's going to be interesting because there'll be a ton of people, in my prediction, that are going to be playing these first couple of tournaments. And then somewhere in the middle, I think people are going to maybe get a little bit complacent about it. And so these ones will probably be the better ones, like where there'll be less people playing. And then towards the end, that's when people will really scramble. That's my prediction on like the population that's going to be playing in these tournaments. Could be wrong, but you need 10 qualifying points. And in order to get those qualifying points, you need to win other tournaments, which should help these tournaments to finally start firing. You can do your daily scheduled tournaments, which are constructed, or you got your 8-person draft queues, which gets you 1 point, or you can do sealed and constructed gauntlets, which get you 1 point as long as you get 5 wins, which is kind of asking a lot. So it seems like to me daily scheduled tournaments and drafts will probably be the better way to go here. What do you think, Nero? What are you going to be doing?
I'm going to do a few dailies probably, but if I need to, I will grind sealed. This first tournament is only 4 days after, so I think there's going to be less people in this specific one. But like with the Dukes, I got like 13 or more. I lost count, but if I could do that with Gauntlet, I can do that with this too. I know that's not what the average player is going to do.
Right.
So they're going to have to basically hope to 4-0 one of the scheduled tournaments is their best bet, basically.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how many people even qualify for these tournaments. Moving on. See, we're doing great on time, by the way, to move on. But so they're mentioning the Hex Invitational again, and we just explained how to do that. Of course, we just talked about this, the Exarch of the Egg and the Quash Tusker for the VIPs. Make sure you're doing that. But then we've got all the media that got outlined. Of course, last week there was no show, and they highlighted a bunch of the streamers that were out there, so make sure to check that one out. But they mentioned a bunch of the podcasts. So we've got the 2 Turns Ahead podcast I listen to off and on as I'm one of the Five Shards members, and I like to know what the other competitive players are saying and talking about. Of course, Nero, you've given some insight to them at least. I know that they mention you quite a lot on there, honestly. So yeah, you've given some things to them, right?
I talk to the guys there. I respect their opinions, and I guess they like some of my ideas.
Right.
I guess people just know me. It feels kind of weird, to be honest.
To be well known, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got the Threshold podcast, which is maybe a little bit more casual, and then they're really just waiting for PvE to come out, is what it feels like. But they're a great listen, great, interesting group of guys. Finally, we've got the Five Shards website, which has a bunch of great articles that you can read. That it's going pretty strong. We basically formed Five Shards out of a lot of the alpha people, the alpha community of Hex content providers, and there's a lot of great articles, and of course that's where I post the show out to. And then they actually did me the honor of giving me a plug on the Hex channel. So this is actually a view of my computer is here on the right side, and then on the left side there's my poster, so you can actually get a different view, a different look at the area where I actually sit to do the show, which is kind of interesting. So thanks to Cryptozoic for highlighting me on this week's update. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Anything else you want to mention there about the different podcasts or things? Or
I just love how they're reaching out to community and promoting them now. That's going to be awesome, because you guys are like the beginning. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guys who come in now with Hex getting bigger, but they're giving a nod to all their original guys, and that's awesome that they're doing that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's tough sometimes because a lot of times I actually do searches once in a while, and we talked about this, where I'll go out and search Hex on YouTube, and I won't be like, I feel like I have probably a lot of videos out there, but I won't be one of the first people that comes up because other people have like 10,000 or more subscribers, and so like whatever they post is like, it just gets like tons of views. So sometimes that's just how it is. And I've always said that I'm not doing this for a lot of money or anything. I'm trying to support the community as much as possible. And if I have at least one viewer every week, like, that should be enough for me, because I don't have to worry about the numbers, because I'm not worrying about getting income from the show. On top of that, though, another thing I listened to this last week was that I had a viewer that was actually one of the people I had on the show, and he said that he would like to get deck building with the Squire in podcast form. And so the deck building portion may not be the best for that, but the opening portion where we're just talking about news and stuff might be okay. So I'm gonna do my best to try to see if I can get a podcast of this. Will be hopefully the inaugural episode for that. So yeah, so hopefully we can get that on there, and we'll see. We might actually add in the deck building portion anyways and just see how that plays, because I'll post the list. And on top of that, if you ever are watching the show and you're just like, I just don't have time, this Nero Squire just keeps talking on and on and on about stuff, I just want to see the deck, you can always look down on the comments section if you're on YouTube, or if you're on the Five Shards website. If you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see all the cards in the deck list that we've posted, and you'll be able to build the deck and try it out and see what you think. And I always love to get feedback to see what you think about the deck. You can tell me it's good, you can tell me it's bad, whatever you're going to tell me. Just make sure to yeah, just interact with me, and I will interact with you. That's my promise to you guys. So anything on that? I mean, would you like to see it in a podcast form? Would that help you out, Nero, or not so much?
Not me specifically, but I know there's a lot of busy people, and that's like the only way they've been able to listen to other media for Hex. So I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
So we're going to move on to the Deck Doctor. So we originally thought about tonight doing a thing where we just talk about our basically how it is that we do our mentality on stuff, and we kind of touched on it at the beginning, but I think I owe you guys something better than that. So I'm going to try to do more of like a one-off standalone video, either one video or a video series where I'll go through a PowerPoint and I'll go through like my methodology and like how I'm actually building these decks so quickly. A lot of it just comes down to knowing the cards and having ideas, and then just throwing stuff together, following the curve, and just some of that is just experience. But we've been asked to do a deck for the next Five Shards tournament, the Wild Cup, which has the restriction of we need to play at least, I believe it is 20 troops in the main deck. There has to be at least 5 troops in the reserves, and out of all of those cards, they all have to have the same type. So like, for instance, if we use this zombie vulture, we could have they could be all undead, or they could be all zombies, or all birds. But we couldn't have like another, like if we had like 19 undead, we couldn't have something that was just a zombie or just a bird. They all have to share the same type. So, Nero, like, what's your first thoughts on, like, when you approach this problem?
My first thought is, what are bombs that have a generic trait, such as the classes? Because the classes have so many troops. My second thought is, curve is something that matters a lot to me, so I try to find something that has at least one good one drop. Because I know it's gonna be hard with traits to get more than that, but at least one good one, and then at least two good two drops, and same thing with three drops and so on, and at least one bomb, and probably at least one card advantage related troop, like a 2-for-1 troop, or like Buccaneer or Corpse Flyer, something along those lines. Any of the dinosaurs, something like that.
So I've been toying around with this past week, and I know that orcs is going to be a big thing, because we know quash decks are huge, and they use mostly orcs anyways, so we're not going to be building that, but we will need to be aware that that is something that's in the archetype right now for this tournament. On top of that, there's another deck that I feel like is ready to rear its head in this format and be a strong contender, and that is, of course, the Ruby Sapphire, what do you call it, Gore Feast deck. I think that is going to be a major contender in this format, because it runs, basically you're only losing one card, one dwarf out of that deck, and it's pretty much all the rest of it's there, and you lose Stormcloud. The rest of it's there, and it still will do stupid things with Gore Feast, and if you actually kill the troops that are in it, you'll just keep drawing cards, because you still have to deal with Mirror Knight in that deck. That's another one that I built. I think I'm going to go ahead and post that one later, but the last one that I built that I felt like was a little bit interesting, or a little bit on the other side, a little bit on the wild side, was actually a Diamond Ruby deck, which runs the new Human Champion, where he gives your guy +1/+1 and Swift Strike. So I think that's the one I want to run tonight. What would you build? I actually tried dinosaurs as well, but there weren't enough dinosaurs, because I really wanted to make the Carnosaurus plus what's it called, the other Tyrannosaurus thing, you know what I'm talking about, the 5/6.
Crocosaur.
I really wanted that to happen, but getting 20 dinosaurs is just so hard, and Cro-Mag is another card I really wanted to run in there, and he is not a dinosaur. I can't run that deck without having Cro-Mag when I know that he's a card that actually exists. So what were your thoughts, Nero, on like how you would build for this?
My first thought is that I want Sapphire X, because you need counters, so I'd either go with Ruby or Blood for the other color. So if you're going to go into Sapphire Blood, the most common thing in those colors would be the Venom race. And if you're going Sapphire Ruby, either humans or rogues are the most common types. So those are two directions I would try.
Yeah. So should we try the one that I'm doing, or you want to do that Venom Rogue one? The one where I think the Ruby Diamond one, I think you're actually going to like it, because I'm playing a couple of cards which are kind of interesting in there, and I actually had somebody dump some interesting tech on me with it. I think you'll like it, actually, because this is not updating.
I'd love to see it. So
all right, let's see.
That.
All right, so we're going to go with that then. Whew. So the champion that I was talking about, let's get that guy first. That'll be easy. Is the Ruby Diamond champion, and he is like, apparently my thing is not updating that quickly for some reason. So I just updated it to Windows 10, and it's already screwed a couple things up, but I've recovered. I've actually still, like, you can't hit F11 and have a full screen of your thing anymore, of your stuff, and that's pretty annoying. And right now I'm not even seeing some of the champions that I need to see for some reason. Where is he? What's his name? I wish I had the names memorized. See, this is why you need to memorize the cards for this exact moment, so you don't get embarrassed. But yeah, Bryson Maplewood. So this is the guy. 1 diamond, 1 ruby, and for 4, your troop gets +1/+1 and Swift Strike, which is pretty sweet. This is super important, like when we're dealing with troops that we need to not die on the attack, or that can, you know, hopefully defend for us in the human realm. And so we can run obvious things like a lot of the pets is probably what we're gonna end up running in here. Do you like this guy? Do you not like him, Nero? You like this choice?
It's interesting. For constructed, it's a little bit tough because of how much control people have over their removal. But depending on your curve, I think you could get it to work. So I'd have to see the curves before I approve of the champion.
Before you approve? Okay. So let's go human. Of course, I'm having some problems. It's Windows. It's the new Windows. It's doing it to me. So we definitely want Falconer, because when we buff this guy, it buffs his falcons. That's an easy choice, right? Easy choice. Plus, there's a chance that we may actually be able to swing in with Falconer, as he'll have Swift Strike in the front end, and our opponent may have a bad block set up for him. Then we're going to get Royal Den Mother. This actually kind of combos with your Falconer by buffing your falcons and giving them +1/+1, because it's all of your pets get +1/+1. Plus, it can take what do you call it? Your other what do you call it? The buffs off of your Inspire type troops. Another one that's kind of interesting in here, and I've gone two of, is Prince Talysen. Prince Talysen, when you play him, you can't really play him with Sapphire, I found, because you're running counters, and so if you deal damage to your opposing champion, there's a chance you're going to draw a counter, and that kind of sucks. But in this deck, we can play basically 8 Ruby kill spells, and then when we deal damage, we can either deal damage to our opponent's face or possibly kill a troop with Prince Talysen. And we can give him Swift Strike, which will help protect him. So he's a really great troop, I found. I haven't tried to play him against real players just yet. I do a lot of my testing against the AI, but so far it's so good on Prince Talysen. I really like him. The big issue is the double Ruby on him. That's what I found. And I'm going to try to run a lot of uniques in here, because we're actually going to be running another interesting card, which is the new Bard card. We're going to run 2 Lord Alexanders, just because he buffs all of our troops. He's going to give them that haste that they need, so they can swing right away, so we can get those birds in really quick. He's also another unique that's pretty good. We've seen a lot of play in the past. Legionnair of Gawaine is another great one to play as maybe a 1 of or a 2 of at the top of the range, so he can take all of those Inspires and then give us a positive board state by either dealing damage to our opponent's face and getting us enough damage to push in for the win, or by sweeping our opponent's board state, especially if there's a chance that we actually get to a place where we can play him, if our opponent's playing like those orcs or whatever else. Of course, we have to defend early with a lot of our other tokeny stuff, which is why we, of course, have our, like we talked about before, the Falconer and the other card. Falconer and Royal Den Mother. Jags is another one that I play like 1 to 2 of in this deck. He's actually really nice just because he has that single Ruby threshold, and it's not showing me the card now, but you know, giving your extra troops that double damage, you know, helps you get that extra damage through. Another one is Her Majesty Queen Grace. This has been a really good card. You know, you could turn to this card, you can make your stuff cheaper. You can also make your cards that are going to inspire your other cards cheaper, which is pretty cool, and it makes your kings and princesses invincible, so if your opponent does sweep you out with a extinction or something, you can at least save something with her, which is pretty cool. And she defends really well against those orc decks, so she's a 2 of, maybe even a 3 of. Here's the Exiled Bard. I'm running between 3 and 4 of these in the deck, because there's a combo with him where on turn 1 you can have Exiled Bard plus what's it called, the Princess
Victoria.
Princess Victoria, and you get a 2/2 and a 2/3 on turn 1, which is pretty stupid in a lot of situations, especially if you keep playing troops right after her that are named. Of course, she's not coming up very well. I'm not liking the new Windows people. You're not helping me with my show. Yeah, there we go. There she is. So if she's in your opening hand, and this is kind of like a couple of ifs, and you have a diamond shard, you can play Bard first, which is typically what I do, and then play Princess Victoria, which will buff Bard and herself. If you play Princess Victoria first, your Bard will get life drain, which is kind of not that consequential at that part of the game. So if you have her in your opening hand, you really, I feel like, need to play her second. Do you like this combo? Do you not like it? Nero, what do you think about it?
Getting 2 troops on board on turn 1 is a pretty big deal. Obviously, if you mulligan, it's not as great because after a couple turns, they're going to be outclassed. But I like that early game. I enjoy it. As long as you can either have a way to make them relevant, which you do, because you have Bryson, they can become relevant again. Or if you have a way to basically remove their troops, you'll be fine.
So Crackling Bolts, I found, was kind of important. We talked about how it was that Prince Talysen's going to be able to play the top card of our deck. And, okay, where does you find... Raven Hawk is asking where you find the dailies to do the 100k tourney. They will be in the tournament queue. So you have to look at the tournament queue to see where the dailies are, and I believe those are constructed. So if you turn that one on, that's how you'll get to those. But the Crackling Bolt is really super important for Bryson Maplewood because you need to be able to get that 4th shard so you can buff one of your troops. You're not always going to get it on the most optimal troop. There's been quite a few times when I've had to put it on a bear, which is fine. You know, you get a 4/4 swift striking bear. That's pretty good because as long as his pet owner is up, he's a 3/3. 4/4 swift striking bear is pretty good. So yeah, the Crackling Bolt's kind of a must for this deck. The burns are kind of a big deal because there's a lot of X2 cards, and when we say that, that just means 2 toughness, 2 back ends that you have to answer, like your like we talked about before, the what do you call them? Even cards in our own deck we have to answer on our opponent's deck, but the Sapphire one, I'm forgetting what it's called now. Man, this is really annoying that these cards are not coming up. You know what I'm saying, Nero, though? It's the Sapphire one, the 1/2 Sapphire.
Cerulean Mirror Knight?
Cerulean Mirror Knight. Yeah, you need to be able to answer Mirror Knight, like, right away. That's kind of important. Actually, I guess I should probably go back to looking at humans. I'm trying to remember what else we had in the deck. What I had in the deck to play it. The curve is looking okay. We kind of need some more stuff in the 2-point range, and I think that's really where I was suffering. I wasn't finding a lot of amazing cards to throw in that 2-point range. And it's really tough when I can't see the images here. Also, that's really annoying. Let's go and do Ruby. Or actually, not Ruby.
Well, what about the Highlands Blackbelt?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what I had in here. Good memory. Go ahead and talk about it.
It's a 2/1 for 2. With 3 optional effects that you can get from it, so it's pretty versatile, giving it flight, and also dealing 1 to all troops is a pretty big deal. Giving it double damage. I mean, if you're gonna run Gore Feast in this deck, that's amazing. Even though flight's amazing, and just dealing 2 to something, and actually could be more if you got Bryson on it and other inspires. So I love it. It's one of the best 2 drops in the game.
Yeah, and then of course, like you just mentioned, Gore Feast is kind of like a mainstay in the Ruby deck that can do things. Now, I only like really running 2 in here just because Gore Feast on an empty board state does nothing for you, and we don't have the card draw that you would have if we were in Sapphire. So we kind of need to have a board state to make Gore Feast work. But, you know, you could run 3. I wouldn't fault anyone for that. How many would you run, Nero? Would you feel like 2 or 3? What would you do?
The max I've been running is 3, but it depends on the cost of my deck. In this deck so far, I would only run 2, because really you're not looking at going that late anyway. Yeah. And you don't have the Mirror Knights for recovery in this deck, so you can't go like, oh, I'm going to be stacking up resources and playing multiple things on the same turn. So really you're probably going to have lower resources in this deck. so you don't want more than 2 anyway.
I think this is pretty much the deck that I've settled on so far, and you can see the curve is real nice on there. I have, what's his name? His Majesty King Gabe is a nice like game ender for me. I'm not sure if I really want to main deck him. Maybe it might be better to play some other stuff, but he is a named troop. We can play him quite easily with Her Majesty Queen Grace if we don't draw enough shards. You know, if we draw him early, like there's only one in the deck, so we don't have to worry about drawing multiples of him. I don't feel like it's too bad. I was playing 3 Princess Victoria for a while, and I actually even like buffed it out. I played 4 of her and 4 Exile Bard, and when it happens, it's kind of nice in the early turns, but if they answer it, not so great. Plus, later on, it feels like Princess Victoria is a 1-2 for 3, which is just so suboptimal that you just don't want to see it that much later. She's more of a buff and a chump blocker at that point that kind of gets you some life draining. So it just felt like it wasn't good enough. Again, Prince Talysen, I went down to 1 on. I was playing 2 just because of the double ruby threshold, but it's really nice because he basically gives you virtual card draw. If you get that Swift Strike on him, he can be very difficult for your opponent to stop. Plus, they have to worry about your burns. So even if they have enough to stop him, like with the Swift Strike, you can then burn the target, and then he'll live and they'll die. Because he'll deal his Swift Strike damage first in a lot of situations, not every situation. Of course, the Highlands Blackbelt gives us 4 more removal spells, so we have a total of 12 removal spells in here. Plus, Gore Feast can finish out games with all of the extra troops. Just seems like a great, very solid deck to me from what I've been playing. Again, I haven't played against a lot of players yet. Is there any changes or anything you feel, Nero, that I've been missing with the deck that I should be doing that I'm not?
I would probably add 1 more troop to make your pets more relevant. Either one of the Pyromancers, whether it's Ruby or Elite, just to make them worth something if their master dies. Because you're going to see a lot of removal probably in the Wild Cup.
Okay. Sure.
And you don't have the luxury of Mirror Knight to keep drawing. There is no draw in this deck, so those tokens need to keep their worth even if their master dies.
So if I did that, I think what I would do, because I still want to keep most of these cards, is I would probably go down 1 on my black belts. I mean, do you feel like that's the choice? Either that or Gore Feast.
How many black belts are there?
I have 4 in here right now. I mean, I can always throw 1 on the reserves if I need the extra removal, you know?
Yeah.
And I also like that, like, I liked where the curve was before that anyways. Oops. We also have to get some humans in our reserves, and so things that we would put in the reserves, probably like Frost Wizard would be a good one for that blood matchup. But I don't think that blood is gonna, like, it feels like blood has like suboptimal choices. It's like playing vampires, there's not enough vampires, so I don't think we're actually going to see a lot of vampires in this format. It feels like if they're going to play blood, they're probably going to play spiders, and the spiders that they have to choose from, like the best one is what's it called, well, Fentio is really good, of course, and then what's his name, the other spider, the 3-1, forgetting what it's called, but basically, yeah, like those are the 2 best spiders that you have to choose from, and the rest of them are not that great. We should be able to push damage through them. Okay, put some shards in here.
I'd probably reserve Valiant Escort. It saves your guys from extinction, especially. All you have to save is the Falconer, and you get 2 more Falcons anyway because it gets bounced.
Yeah, so that's a good idea.
Get them back.
I definitely like that idea.
It's also very good for your curve. It's a 1-drop, 2-1, so it should fit nicely in there.
Now, I will be putting both this deck and the Sapphire version, which is basically Gore Feast, on the, so if you're looking for that deck specifically, we're going to put that on there as well. We have so much time. We can make a lot of other assumptions about this deck or talk about it as well while I'm getting the rest of this stuff on here. I need to get the shards in here. Resources. There we go. 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 We can look at our deck analysis and draw test so we can figure out how many shards that we need. I think I've been running... Wow, we got a lot of Ruby in this deck. Yeah, so we're probably going to run like 10 or 11 Ruby shards in here. Of course, it's not bringing up the shards when I type in shard. If I type in Ruby, will it come up?
Sorry, we can just blame Windows.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Windows. So for some reason the shards aren't showing up. I don't know why the basic shards aren't showing up. The website's broken because I upgraded to Windows 10. Windows 10! Inquisitor! Yeah, thanks, armies. Yeah, that's definitely what we were looking for there. Or maybe if I have PV, maybe it's because I have PvP turned on. Maybe that's why it's not showing up. Maybe that's why. Nope, I'm still not seeing them. Still not seeing those shards. But we'll do the draw count and other stuff. I mean, are there any other assumptions or anything else you want to talk about with this deck? Or do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you feel like it's a tier 2 at least? I mean, we're talking to the guy that's done very well in a lot of tournaments, so he would know if this is reasonably good or not.
I think it's going to be tier 2 just because there's a few decks that are a little bit faster. And it's got that awkward spot. It's slower than the fast decks, but it doesn't have the power to make up for that. So
right.
So it's not going to mid range, but at the same time it probably synergizes better, and it might have a little bit stronger finish. And I guess that's what the sacrifice is there.
Right.
I'd probably, if I was gonna go this fast, I'd probably just go all in and go a little bit faster and go with like Quash Cleric type deck or Quash Orc deck. But I do like this too.
Right. Yeah, I mean it feels really good to have those opening hands where it's like Bard plus what's her name? Plus Princess Victoria. Like that hand feels pretty good. And then if you can just keep going and go into like I guess a Pyromancer, into like Den Mother, into I mean, even just that can win a game by itself. But if you do that into like a Royal Falconer, and you know that you can go that deep because for some reason they're not running Extinction or whatever, yeah, I mean, and even if they are, like, at that point, they kind of have to Extinction. If you play 3 of those cards, and then you can just sit on your Falconer and just play it in response after. This is just annoying that this website's not working. I'm really sorry about the website not working very well. You know, I wish it was doing a little bit better for us tonight, but it's just not. You know, I blame Windows 10 upgrade, but so far things have been pretty good. No removal is like no removal. That's true. No removal is like no removal. But we should have. Let's see. We've got 19 slots left, so probably as far as shards, 10 or 11 Ruby shards. Probably 10 because we do need that opening diamond shard in our first hand. So like that's a little bit clunky. Maybe we should be looking at removing some Ruby cards from the deck, just so we can have a better curve out for diamond. That's a possibility.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that, my first vote would be Prince Talysen because of the double threshold.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe just go all in on Ruby, where you can go mono Ruby just so we can play him. But then again, we don't get Bryson, and that's like the whole point. Yeah. And plus, we do want these named troops to go with our exiled bard too. So yeah, it's tough for me to say. I need to play this against real players, I think is the main thing. I mean, I think that probably is the choice, but it's just so hard to make. Gotta make the tough choices. There's no free AOD deck in the format they're building for. So yeah, right now the format we're building for, you're required to have all the same trait of troop. So because of that, there's no Vampire King or Angel of Dawn because there's just not enough to make those viable. So that's nice. In the other version of this deck, I actually do run 4 Angel of Dawn because it's stupid to play like what we said before, where you play a diamond card, or you play a diamond shard, you play an exiled bard, and then you play a free Princess Victoria, and then on turn 2 you top deck like a free Angel of Dawn. Like, that's a stupid line of play to have happen, and it can happen. You know, once in a while that can happen. So yes, if we had a different format where we didn't have to play all humans, which is what we're doing here, Angel of Dawn is what I would play in this deck over quite a few of these cards. I'm trying to think of the ones I actually replaced. I think I replaced, like, yeah, King Gabriel gets replaced with Angel of Dawn. Jags goes down to like 1. Lord Alexander goes down to 1. Maybe get rid of a Crackling Bolt or something to play the playset of Angel of Dawn. Or maybe actually Legionnaire probably goes down to 1. Am I doing VIP tonight? I am not doing VIP tonight. I'll be doing it tomorrow at some point in time. So I think we're pretty much done with the episode. But yeah, it's been a really good episode. I actually didn't drink that much of my drink, which is probably why I'm not sloshed right now.
You gotta drink some more. Just chug a little bit.
Just chug a little bit, yeah. But super stoked this week. It's been a great week for Hex, that's for sure. And we're going to see what we can do about possibly getting this on podcast form. So if you are listening to this on the podcast form, let me know what you think. If that's something you like, if that's something you want me to continue doing, if I actually get it out there on the podcast form. And this is a straight up homebrew that I've been working on this other deck. I guess that's another thing to think about. Like, not always when I come into these shows am I ready to build a deck from scratch where I've actually practiced and looked at different deck types during the week, but a lot of times I am. So that's another reason why I'm able to build these decks like really quickly from scratch. Another thing as an exercise that you can do just as an offshoot of that to become a better deck builder is that you can sit down at work on your lunch hour or whatever else with a pad of paper, and if you don't know what the cards are or what they, know at least what they do and what their costs are if you can't remember the names. And then you just kind of squiggle out what they do. Then you do exactly what we did here. After you've got all the cards you think you want in the deck, you're changing the numbers and all this stuff. You go ahead and figure out what your curve is, and you figure out how many, and then you do this deck analysis where you figure out how many diamond you have and how many ruby you have, and then like what your actual resource curve is and what it looks like on paper and how good it looks to you on paper. And that's just another exercise you can do to become a better deck builder, to build stuff from scratch like that. It also frees you from a lot of things, because if all you do all day is look at decks that other people have built, then you start falling into, well, I'll just build this deck and run it for this tournament and I'll change a couple of cards. But like every time, if you start from scratch, especially if you don't have the entire list in front of you, you're going off of memory. You're probably going off of cards you remember well, or cards that you like, or cards that you were thinking about anyways. And so like when you can actually go and have access to the full list later, you can pick out other cards that go better with the deck that you're thinking of. But the initial build is going to be one of with more ingenuity, where you have to kind of do things off the cuff. So that's just one more thing as an exercise that you can do to become a better deck builder. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So Nero, anything else to say about the deck or about the show tonight, or anything else you want to, some wisdom you're gonna lay on us?
One thing that I've done in physical card games is basically fake drafts, where I basically put all my commons face down and then make fake packs out of them, and a fake sealed, and practice making decks like that. It's kind of hard to do that in Hex because you can't just put your cards face down, but limiting yourself is one of your best ways of learning to become a better deck builder. Because when you actually have constraints and say well, I don't have that card, what can I add instead? Or maybe there's a combo that can be just as strong. That helps you a lot, especially because part of this tournament coming up, the 100K tournament, is limited. So deck building is a very, very important part of that. So everyone should practice that. Put constraints on yourself the next time you build a deck.
Right.
And see what you get.
Completely agree. All right, so let's do the breakdown on the episode, close it out, and then do these awesome giveaways for all the people that decided to join us tonight. Really appreciate you guys, by the way. So tonight on Deck Build with Squire, I had NeroJinious on. It's his first time on the show. He does some streaming, so make sure to check him out. I believe it's twitch.tv/NeroJinious, NeroJinous. Is that what it is?
JINOUS, but good enough.
So make sure to check him out and head over there, give him a follow if you liked what he had to say. He's one of the better players. He's done a lot. He's made a lot more top 8s than I have. We'll put it that way. I've got one. And we also talked about the fact that we can all rejoice and the lawsuit has finally been settled. It's over with. We don't have to worry about it anymore. We got that, that weight off of our backs, and now we can progress on, and Hex can hopefully come out of beta, and the next big thing is going to be PvE, so I'm hoping that we see that by Christmas time, and we've got these wonderful tournaments going on, so it's just a great time to be playing some Hex. We also talked about the VIP tournament this weekend, so make sure you're getting out to do that. If you haven't already, go to the hexccg.com website, and so you can figure out when the times are for that if you have your VIP tickets and all that sort of thing. And then we talked about the 100K tournament and how it is that you're going to need to get 10 points in order to even just play in the qualifiers. And there's 12 qualifiers. Of those, each first place contestant is going to get flown to Hex Entertainment, get to hang out with the team, and do probably some sort of Twitch TV live cast of them playing. So we'll be able to watch them win. Some lucky player is going to win that 100K. And then we finished up with the news items with all of the awesome podcasts that are out there. We've got the Threshold podcast. We've got the Five Shards. What is it called? I forgot what it's called now. The Five Shards 2 Turns Ahead podcast, and then of course the Five Shards website, and then of course I do my own stuff, which you guys are watching right now, and I appreciate that a lot. Then we finished up with this deck building idea, and it's probably a tier 2-ish, but it should be a lot of fun to play at least. I'm really liking playing this deck. I haven't played it against a lot of players to see how weak or strong it is, so I should be doing that hopefully at some point in time soon. Really sorry that all the images aren't coming up. We're going to post this on the comments below, so make sure to check that on the YouTube comments. And I'll also post the typical Ruby Sapphire Humans deck that is more typical to, I guess they call it Gore Feast, Gore Knights type of a deck that I also put together, which is going to be a typical build. It's less interesting to me because it's very similar to what we've seen in the past. And that was pretty much the show tonight. Nero, you have anything else to close us out with at the end of the show?
Yes, I do, and I almost forgot, so thank you for reminding me. I would like to give away a alternate art vampire princess.
Ooh, so yeah, we'll do that after the show is over, so you guys are going to get some awesome stuff tonight. We got a draft to give away after the show, and then I also have another convocation pack to open up, and we'll see what that warrants us. So that's pretty much it. I'm guessing I have a sign-off. I always mess with people with the sign-offs. Nero, do you have a sign-off? Otherwise, I'm going to do mine, and,
No, I don't have one, sorry.
Okay, make sure to stick around after the show for the giveaways. This is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless your families. Trying to raise too much out there.